So I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and I spend a good part of my time involved in testing and assessing kids and teenagers and young adults who have learning disabilities or attention problems or neurological problems, emotional, behavioral problems, and trying to figure out what's working well, what's not working well, and how to help them. I lecture and write a lot about the effects of stress on the developing brain. I think there's a lot of interest in this idea that the adolescent brain is very underdeveloped. It's very unlike an adult brain. The interesting thing about that is that it has all kinds of potential for development. And at the same time, developing brain systems are more vulnerable. You know, the developing brain is more vulnerable to various chemicals or to injury, accident, various things. And so there's all these things in modern life that have a terrible effect on the developing brain, including drugs and alcohol in adolescents, including the chronic sleep deprivation that we see in teenagers, including the chronic stress that we see affecting both kids in elite schools who want to be top students and go to elite college, and kids in the poorest and most poverty-stricken schools, where kids' stress levels are 3 times what they are in the general population. And we know that when you get stressed, what happens is the parts of the brain that allow you to think clearly basically get shut down. Because in a real emergency, if you're being attacked, you don't want to stop and think. If you overthink, that's dangerous. So nature's programmed us so that when we start to feel stressed, which means that we start to feel threatened, or we start to feel that we could be embarrassed or hurt, or we're behind on something, we're worried about something. When we start to feel stressed, we're supposed to respond instinctively, which means that we can't think clearly. We can't organize our thinking. We can't put things in perspective. And so it's a very dangerous situation for kids and teenagers to be trying to learn and trying to develop, to sculpt brains that work well, that can see things in perspective, that have a big picture on life, that have a positive attitude, that can be optimistic if they're stressed and tired all the time, because the brain doesn't work that way. In my experience, Transcendental Meditation is really good for the developing brain. I talk about Transcendental Meditation because in my experience, that teenagers can do it very easily, and when they do it in just 10 minutes twice a day, what they experience is that they actually have a center, they have a core of peacefulness and happiness inside them that they can access. And the more they do it, the more they find that they're less reactive to stress. When they do get stressed, it goes away faster. They generally sleep better, they find it easier to eat and get through life. And these kids simply need antidotes to these tremendous stressors, including the drugs and alcohol and sleep deprivation. Like everybody else, I'm also really concerned about this epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes in kids, and including quite young kids now. And that in trying to think about these problems, that people over the years have focused on diet and exercise. So for children, that means nutritional education and hopefully some kind of exercise. And yet, despite this big emphasis on diet and exercise, people just keep getting fatter and fatter, including younger and younger kids. And the current thinking is that a lot of this may be related to the fact that they're just so tired. And we know from research in adolescents that TM significantly reduces the risk for type 2 diabetes, that stress plays a big role in obesity, and so that by giving the nervous system rest, by de-stressing kids, I think that we also significantly reduce their risk for heart-related problems, for obesity-related problems. And you know, I just read a study a couple of years ago that found that if you effectively treat blood pressure in adults, you lower the risk of dementia by 50%. And which makes sense in terms of you get better blood flow to the brain. And there's good evidence that Transcendental Meditation, by providing a tool for systematically de-stressing, allows the heart to work better And if the heart works better, the brain works better. And it makes kids at less risk for having all manner of stress-related physical problems and stress-related brain problems as they get older. In my lecturing and my writing at this time, what I'm arguing is that our top priority in educating kids should be creating environments that aren't unduly stressful to be in, and helping kids develop brains that function at a high level of efficiency. And much more important than what they're taught, what they know, is really having brains that work in a healthy way and being in an environment in which kids feel safe. And I think that if we think about what are the real dangers of as kids get older, particularly as they grow into adolescence, what are the real dangers? And there are things like kids making bad decisions, kids losing motivation, kids getting depressed, kids developing eating disorders or self-injury, really worrisome things, kids abusing drugs or alcohol. All these things are highly related to stress. And if we see Transcendental Meditation correctly as a beautiful tool and a very easy tool to use for normalizing the stress response, providing deeper rest, all these things get better. Kids who are less stressed are significantly less likely to get depressed. They're significantly less likely to use drugs or alcohol, to cut themselves, to burn themselves, all the other things that we worry as kids get older can go wrong. And my feeling is that there's nothing more important than helping kids develop nervous systems that work well, that can learn well, and that feel good.